Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us here today at the Sunshine Cathedral via the website. And we want to welcome you to our worship services whenever you're in the Fort Lauderdale area. If you are in the area, we invite you to worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. We're located at 1480 Southwest 9th Avenue. And for those who watch us weekly on the internet, we invite you to check our website often for other listings and programming that we might have that may be of interest to you. And for now, I invite you to come in and worship with us here at the Sunshine Cathedral.
Our first reading comes from Exodus. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and more powerful than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will increase, and in the event of a war, join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to oppress them with forced labor. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Thanks be to God. A reading from the Psalter. If the Lord had not been on our side, when enemies rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us up alive in their fierce anger towards us. Our help is in the name of the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Thanks be to God. Our third reading is from the Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Humanity is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptizer, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are anointed, the one chosen by the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for your realization isn't natural, but supernatural. And I tell you, you are a rock, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of death will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the realm of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was God's anointed. In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Thanks be to God.
Would you please join me in the spirit of prayer? Let us not be instruments of our own or others' oppression. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts bring hope and healing and peace to our nation, to our world. Amen. I think that most of you know me. For those of you that don't, my name is Anne. That's Anne with an E. I was named for my maternal grandmother. Everybody called her Annie, while I was Anne, just to differentiate between us. I thought that my grandma Annie was just great. She was such a loving woman, not just to me, but really to everybody. She was a great cook, a voracious reader, and smart as can be without even having graduated from high school. I asked my mom about it, and she said her mother was really a self-educated woman. But I have to share with you that when I was growing up, I really didn't like my name. I thought it was kind of boring. Anne. My friends, in my mind, had all these really wonderful names. I had a dear friend named Amy, and Lori, and Michelle, and Teresa, and my sister's name was Kathy, and I was just Anne. When I was about 15 or 16 years old, my grandmother was diagnosed with lung cancer. Well, she did smoke about 4 packs of those Camel non-filtered cigarettes every day for years, so it wasn't really a surprise. But her illness and her impending death really shook me. I remember one Sunday evening we were visiting with her in the hospital. My whole family was gathered around her hospital bed. One of the nurses came in to check on my grandmother, and while the nurse was there, my grandmother reached out her hand to me and introduced me to the nurse. She said, "This is Anne, Anne with an E. This is my namesake." And she squeezed my hand, and she held it for just a little while longer. My grandmother died later that night, and I'll never forget what she said. "This is Anne. This is my namesake." Suddenly, my name didn't seem so dull. My name was important. It was meaningful. It was special, and it still is. So I am Anne, Anne with an E, named for my most wonderful, loving, caring, exceptional grandmother. In the gospel lesson that we just heard, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they gave a variety of responses. Some said John the Baptizer. Others said Elijah or Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. The disciples were doing what we most likely would have done had we been in their shoes, projecting our particular cultural allegiances onto Jesus. In our mainline churches today, we might interpret Jesus through the lives of Martin Luther King Jr. or Mother Teresa or others who have reached into the margins of society, those who welcome the stranger, those who work for justice, those who are filled with compassion. And in the next verse, Jesus asks his disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And Simon Peter announces, "You are the anointed, the one chosen by God." After Jesus praises Peter for his answer, he orders his disciples not to tell anyone. I would suspect that Jesus knew what could happen if word got out that he had been called by God to live a life of care and of welcome and of compassion. Jesus knew that it could be dangerous. His life would be at stake if his true identity were known. Jesus was reluctant to come out as one who would go against the Roman authorities in ways that would stir up that community, and not in a good way. Jesus at that point may not have wanted to have his name attached to that. So only his closest friends, his dearest confidants, would know the truth about him. It is his choice when and with whom he will share his identity. But naming is powerful, isn't it? Sharing our truest, most authentic identity is powerful. Our name and our identity say something about who we are and what makes us unique from everybody else. Naming can be very political, and our identity attached to that gives others information about us, information that we may be reluctant to share. Think about the names that have been used to hurt and demean people. How many of us have been called names meant only to wound? And sure, we can take back those names. We can use these once hurtful names to self-identify in a way that we won't be hurt again. And that is power. So I want to invite you to reflect for a moment. How do you see Jesus? What identity have you assigned to him? What do you think of when you hear the name Jesus? Now, speaking only for myself, I think of Jesus as someone who was a teacher, who encouraged others, both men and women, to live out a life of generosity and of love and of deep faith. I think of Jesus as one who offers forgiveness when people stumble and make poor life choices. I think of Jesus as one who welcomed and offered care to those who were most vulnerable, women and children, those who were ill or hurting or in trouble. As a church community, as followers of the message and identity of Jesus, how do we live out our lives so that others will see a reflection of Jesus in us? We may offer care and love in the face of hate. We may speak truth to power when there is so much antagonistic speech around right now. It's all over the place. We may encourage people when they are feeling less than hopeful. And we may stand up for justice as we recognize the sacred value of all people. In the work that I do here at Sunshine Cathedral, I have the opportunity to meet with so many people around our community. Recently, I was distributing some of the brown bag lunches, which are prepared here every Wednesday as part of our feeding ministry. One of the lunch recipients had a question for me. He asked, "So, what kind of church is Sunshine Cathedral?" And I thought, oh geez. I know what we say here every Sunday. Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church where the past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. But what does that mean? How do I own that? Or more appropriately, how do we own that? How do we own the identity of Sunshine Cathedral? What do we do with that? Let's break it apart, shall we? Number one, Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church. Yeah. According to the Pew Research Center, did you know that less than 20% of Americans attend church regularly? You know, when I was growing up, missing church on a Sunday wasn't really an option. You had to be really sick to stay home. But times have changed, and attitudes have changed. Churches are competing with Starbucks and the New York Times on Sunday mornings. Churches are competing with people who have to work on a Sunday morning. And sometimes people just want a day off, some time to sleep in. And many more people are saying they really don't want to be part of a church that tells people they have to check their brains at the door, or will tell people that they are not welcome because of their sexual orientation or gender identity or ethnic background or even a different belief system. A good number of people are seeing that the larger church community can sometimes be more divisive than unifying. When we say that Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church, I believe that what we are saying is that you can be part of this community with your questions about God and Jesus, and with your doubts about what it all means, with the idea that science and religion and spirituality can work together, and that all people, lesbians, gay men, the trans community, bisexuals, queer folk, wonderful allies, people from the Muslim and Jewish communities, agnostics and atheists, all people are worthy of divine love, are part of divine love, and are welcome and celebrated fully and authentically at Sunshine Cathedral. And when hate and racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia are all normalized, and there are those who will say it's our history, it's the way we've always done it, Sunshine Cathedral is the community that will speak out for justice, will speak truth to power, and we will say no. When we say all, we mean all people are worthy and filled with divine goodness, all people. So who do we say that we are? We are a welcoming, celebrating, justice-seeking, affirming community that knows there are many ways in which to experience the divine and many questions that will never be answered. And still, we keep on affirming the humanity of all people, and we keep on questioning because there is power and there is beauty in recognizing that we will never have all the answers. Number 2, the past is the past. Guess what? I have done some things in my life that were not so bright, I gotta tell you. Oh yes, there are things I really wish I could do over. And, my friends, there are no do-overs. We have to move on. We will never, ever have a better past. Yet we need to remember that no matter what our past was, it does not define us today. We may have made some poor choices along the way, and with what we know now, we would hopefully do things a little differently. We need to let go of what is holding us back, those things that we cling to, those experiences that keep us awake at night. Our past is what we've been through. It's not who we are. It has helped mold us, but it does not define us. We need to forgive ourselves, and we need to forgive others. We, every one of us, have all done things that we're not terribly proud of, and we learn from them, hopefully, and grow. And there was nothing wrong with remembering some of our experiences from the past fondly, with some joy and some reflection. But they indeed are part of the past. Remember some things with love, and let go of those things that hold us back. So who do we say that we are? We are a church community which understands that sometimes we all make poor choices. We know that no one is perfect, and yet we honor and recognize that everyone is created to be whole, perfect, and complete. And number 3, the future has infinite possibilities, and I think that sometimes that part of it can be the most terrifying. We, including me, become very comfortable in what we know. We've got our little comfort zones, don't we? There's safety in that. It feels secure. But truly, without any kind of change, we remain stagnant. When we can look forward to what is to come, when we are willing to change things up a bit, our lives will be more exciting, more alive. That choice is ours. We can be stuck, or we can acknowledge that life seems more meaningful when we are willing to embrace the possibilities before us. So, who do we say that we are? We are a church that knows the importance of stepping out into new ways of doing things. We know that wonderful opportunities are available, and we receive them gladly and with excitement about what is yet to come. My friends, there are a number of instances, particularly in the Gospel of John, where the writer imagined Jesus owning his identity. The writer imagined Jesus saying, "I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. I am the good shepherd." There are other I am statements. When we proclaim, "I am," when we proclaim we are, we own that identity. And that is why it is so important to use only positive, uplifting statements about who we are. Wayne Dyer reminds us, anytime you start a sentence with, "I am," you are creating what you are and what you want to be. When you choose to say, "I am happy," "I am kind," "I am perfect," you help the light of God inside you to grow and to shine. And so, my friends, my Sunshine Cathedral community, let's own our identity. Let's affirm who we are by saying together again, and let's really mean it this time, Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church where the past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. We own this. We live this. We are the joy-filled, justice-seeking community that is Sunshine Cathedral, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. If you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, we invite you to stop by and worship with us on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, or if you'd like to find out other resources that the Cathedral has to offer, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, we look forward to seeing you here at the Sunshine Cathedral.